Welcome to Friday afternoon at the Manor. It's a delight to gather on this frosty day, and in a short time we're going to hear from two phenomenal speakers, but I'm going to invite Susan Johnson, our one person who is the wisdom keeper for this wonderful idea, and who said, "What about?" And here we are, many months later. Over to you, Susan.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming. I hope you'll enjoy it. We have two speakers, as JJ said. Richard Haldane, who is talking about job opportunities, employment opportunities, and empowering youth. And Peg Herbert, who is talking about working in Lesotho in Africa with AIDS. So please, Richard.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate having this opportunity to talk about youth employment. As I'm sure we've all have heard, if we have not, that the numbers, as high as they already were, have doubled since the time of this pandemic, and opportunities sapping up in the retail markets and many of the entry-level markets for our youth, as well as unemployment for an older market, and then therefore them having to take on employment opportunities that would also normally be there for youth. But I'm just going to do a presentation on the services that we provide, the new flagship program that we have. As we recognize, there's been a huge shift into the tech sector in regards to there being a huge need for a mass amount of individuals to have IT experience, or what we are starting to tag phrase as digital capabilities. So we're going to just briefly mention that and then finish off with a testimonial from some of our participants that have used the services of youth employment services. So it's interesting to say our name is Yes, because that's what we're looking for when we're talking to people, is getting a yes to join us and join on board and help out our youth. And before I go forward, I would just like to say good afternoon to you, Betty, and give you a chance to say good afternoon to everyone else before I start, if you don't mind.
Well, good afternoon. Nice to see everybody.
Fantastic. So we'll be starting off with a short video, roughly about 3 minutes. Please tell me if everyone can see my screen. Everyone can see the screen. Fantastic.
Employment is the cornerstone of safe and healthy communities. Yes is Canada's leader in youth employment services and provides innovative programs that empower youth to become self-sufficient, contributing members of society. For nearly 50 years, Yes has helped hundreds of thousands of youth become productive members of our communities. Yes changes lives immediately through a variety of coaching, training, and life skills.
Yes has had an immediate direct impact on hundreds of thousands of lives. These are youth who don't need a handout, but a handout.
Typically, individuals will come into Yes not knowing what to do, and we have a wide variety of programs that they can select from to help them in their endeavors. So Yes really helps young people in a lot of areas.
Programming and skills they develop not only helps them gain employment, it gives them a sense of passion, pride, self-worth, and dignity.
We have a 19% success rate last year, very proud of that. Also, the most rewarding part is seeing youth who, criminal records, who are living on the street or homeless, in their first job and actually achieving in that job and maintaining that job.
Youth Employment Services has provided me with education tools and the confidence to realize my dreams.
Training, skills, and the positive energy has given my life direction.
Well, everybody has a different story, a different background, and they come into a program like mine and find the ability to develop themselves. So I see them at beginning stages, and then I see them at the end where they're totally different, a lot more confidence, a lot brighter in terms of their smile or their charisma excel.
The support we receive truly has an impact, truly changes families, communities, and lives.
Yes, changing lives forever.
Thanks very much for that.
Bravo.
So just moving here to my notes 1 second, please. So Youth Employment Services has been around for over 50 years, and currently right now we have a program that is SAS training platform. Amid the urgent call for Canadian youth to have professional skills for taking tech jobs that are among the most in demand in a COVID post and COVID world. So YES has partnered up with the SAS Institute, a global leader in analytic software, to provide free learning pathways for young people to gain accreditations in the SAS skills area and cloud integrity. So currently right now we have a job fair that's going to be taking place in February, where we're looking to connect with employers that would like an opportunity to see our class of 2021 as our innovative thinkers and our think tank. We're thinking ahead of the program and started our SAS program in the midst of the pandemic instead of waiting until our fiscal year end, which is coming up right now, to approach our funders about some of these ideas. And I just want to thank again Amazon for stepping up to the plate, as well as Google in regards to sponsoring the programs that we do have. So moving forward, and I'm so glad to get this opportunity, we're really trying to get out into the public that Youth Employment Services is still a viable candidate in this fight for youth, even though there has been a shift and change in their opportunities. And we're really moving heavily into the skills development department. But in order to make that a successful run for us on behalf of our youth that we're trying to advocate, we need to connect with more tech companies. We need to be out there in regards to conversations with individuals that have friends, have business partners in the tech community, and making sure that Youth Employment Services can bridge into those particular partnerships. So just to finish off my presentation, I just want to give you a list of the different programs that Youth Employment Services does have currently. So there's Employment Services, there's the Job Connect program, Youth Collaboration, the Youth Employment Center, and all of this has been shifted into a virtual world. Our Youth Job Center, Job Central, our Biz Start Entrepreneurship program, our Canadian Ontario Job Grant program, which is specifically geared towards assisting companies in training for their staff in regards to a wide variety of industries, our financial literacy, our connection with HSBC Bank for business consultation, and our Career Accelerator training program, our Lighthouse Project program, which assists individuals who might have mental or physical challenges who are interested in re-engaging in the employment sector, the Ontario Works program. And for those who are unaware, it seems that Employment Ontario might be taking on Ontario Works and ODSP as a combined conglomeration going into 2022. If the reports that I've read so far are actually factual, which I believe they are to be. So that's going to be an interesting shift in regards to services for individuals in care of need. Streets to Jobs program, student services. This Way Ahead is another program in regards to those individuals that are wanting to be public speakers. Our Toronto Youth Job Corps program, our Youth to Tech program, our Youth Yes Abilities program, our Yes Mentorship program, our Yes On Demand program, our Yes to Cloud programs. That's 22 programs, and I'm so excited. And I actually love going through the whole list because that's the reason why I'm very thankful to work for an organization like Youth Employment Services. They literally go through every stone, every aspect of what kind of program, what kind of skills training, what is it that we can provide to our youth, because it has been an issue for many years. So I'm just going to finish off with this particular video, which is some testimonies from individuals who have actually taken our services. So I will set that up on a share screen. Give me a moment, please.
I'll share this one more time.
I can see why you were saying I need a moderator, but I wanted to do it. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Here we go.
I'm currently homeless and living in a shelter.
I suffer from anxiety and depression.
I was homeless and living on the street.
I have a disability. I was
Oops.
unemployed and having trouble finding employment.
I wanted to start my own business. I had a plan, but I didn't know how to execute it.
But I said yes to yes, and now I'm employed.
I said yes to yes and became a client.
But I said yes to yes and now I'm employed.
But I said yes to yes, and now I am employed.
I said yes to yes, and now my business is off the ground.
I said yes to yes and now I have a full-time job. Say yes to yes and we'll find the right program for you.
Yes, the employment champion for you.
So again, thank you very much for your time this afternoon to speak with you about a fantastic organization that I work for, a great group that I work on behalf, which is our tomorrow, which is our youth. Our youth is our tomorrow. That's why I put a lot of my energy and time into youth-based programs. And I was honored to get this opportunity to work for this company. And thank you again, Reverend JJ, for putting me in this position to continue passing on the work that we do and looking for new partnerships.
Okay, thank you.
You're not done yet, Richard.
Yes. Thank you, Susan. I always forget that you put this together.
You're not done yet, Richard. We have 10.
Oh, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just saying my thank yous.
We have you chained up for another. No, I'm kidding. No. And no, there might be. I'm going to just remove the spotlight so people can. There we go. Why did that do that? 1 second. And gallery view. Okay. Here we are. So before I launch in with some questions, does anyone have questions of Richard? And just say your name.
Yeah, it's Peter. There was an interesting segment, I think, on PBS NewsHour last night about how difficult it is to get young people into the plumbing profession, because everybody seems to want to go into IT. Has Yes ever thought about doing and I realize that the regulatory environments between Ontario and the States would be radically different, but has Yes ever thought of expanding beyond the IT sector?
No, to be honest with you, IT is a new department. We're not focused just in IT. We actually do have a skills trade. If plumbing is a particular area in the skills trade industry that is seeing challenges in regards to their current labor numbers and in regards to future, then maybe we need to either start promoting or do something to garner more plumbers.
Yeah, and again, that was an American show, so I don't know what it's like.
No problem.
But
still, it's worth a look, because I have seen that come up, plumbing, or there's particular skills trade positions that aren't necessarily getting filled at this time or promoted. What I am actually seeing is we're getting a lot of newcomers that are actually coming in and filling a lot of those skills trade positions more than those that are presently in the country. That seems to be what's happening with that skills area. And that takes a little bit more time to fill. But I wrote it down because I'd like to look into that.
That's interesting. So Richard, what's your official job title at Yes?
So my official job title is job developer. That's exactly what my role is over at Yes. So my role is to reach out to partners for employment opportunities, mentorship opportunities, training opportunities, co-op opportunities, internship. And the beauty of my particular reason of this type of work, it's not one industry specific. I can get a whole range of clients from a wide age group, anywhere from 16 to 30. Also, any industry from financing to construction to retail to whatever the case may be. So for the reason why they hired individuals, I'm not the only one, it's for us to be salesmen for every industry. And really, as I said, just build partnerships. And what's always been the case for youth, because I've been doing this for a long time, the school system abandoned the apprenticeship aspect and mentorship aspects that used to be a part of school. When you had that student that took shop class, they weren't looked at that student because they chose to take shop or electric or all of those particular courses that were offered. And for some reason, the school system let that fade away. That's where the interest, unfortunately, has dwindled, and it's obviously gone to IT because we got everybody with a phone in their hand. Everybody thinks they're already IT. So for me, it's not that there's not youth that are out there and interested, but the process from where they enter now into skills trade, the similarities to their study habits seem to unfortunately follow them into skills and trade. Skills and trade is not getting a job at Tim Hortons. Skills and trade, you got to have a right mindset for it. You really got to have a passion for working with pipes. You really got to have a passion for working with waterway systems and flow of water. Or you got to have a real passion for wanting to be that person who gets a call when somebody's in a jam. It's not that I just think I want to try and do it. So that's why through time, I don't know if I'll ever be in this position, the school system needs to re-enter into that, to give kids that exposure, not drop a keyboard in front of them and a motherboard and stuff, because they really made that shift hard. And still just give those kids the opportunity to get that exposure in grade school, because it's not high school. And that's where the education system, again, I'm just kind of speaking here personally, I'm not an expert. It's failed us because as we've advanced as a civilization, the exposure to our younger generation increased, especially with technology. But we didn't shift the education down. Kids going into school now in grade 9 and 10 should be doing that stuff in grade 7 and 8, because that's how we've advanced our mentality with technology. Our school system hasn't. It's stayed the same for 100 and some odd years now, still thinking that it can keep up with the environment around that it's producing to. Like, I don't understand. Like, that doesn't work in the science world. So anyways, to just kind of go off on a little tangent about, again, I've been doing this a long time, working with youth for a long time, working in employment for a long time. And that's where the shift is skills development, because it's not happening in the school system. Us in the employment world industry have to spend so much time on skills development to help these young people, because I don't even fault them, to figure out what they're good at and what they want to do. Like, I'm still doing aptitude tests with people that are 25 years old and telling me that that's the first time anybody's ever asked them, have you thought about your personality based on the type of work that you're looking for? And again, I'm not like some genius. It just seems to make sense to me. Maybe I don't know. So, Betty, please go ahead. Your microphone.
You're muted, Betty. Why am I?
Yeah, sorry. I just keep thinking with what's going on now, and I was in the healthcare industry. Are young people going to be frightened off from becoming healthcare workers in the future because of what's going on, or is that something that your group would be recruiting and interesting people in?
To be honest with you, that hasn't changed for some of our youth. I think what we're actually seeing with youth, with what's happening right now, unfortunately, there's a fear of just going to work, period. Outside of healthcare, this industry, whatever industry. I actually do have on my own caseload lab technicians, data entry individuals, not so much frontline as in like nurses, because in that particular industry, there are actually recruitment services specifically for PSW workers and so forth. I work with them because I occasionally will get a client that has that interest, Also because a lot of times for those, you have to go to school, and a lot of times with that school, there's a placement component. So not for all, but I would say for at least a good 80 to 90% of those individuals, they're able to somewhat find a job once they kind of get their resume together. And then because that industry is always, we're an aging population. So anyways, and then also we're bringing in a lot of individuals that are also, who knows what their level of sickness is. So that is a course that we do have in regards to supporting people who want to get into the healthcare sector. I also have a connection myself with the health network downtown in Mount Sinai and a few other hospitals that I work with. I'd love more because what I get to do now is I'm looking for more partnerships to build networking and mentoring opportunities for our youth. And that's what I'm trying to really get at with this agency. I think it's been a very serendipitous connection for me to land at. Yes, with my expertise in the way I'm looking at things, I would really like for them to start penetrating skills development in specific industries at a little bit more of a higher level, like healthcare. I would like to see relationships where we have a program where we would have a group of youth that maybe are on an internship through a program we've partnered with the hospital. Because I see that's what's happening with the IT. Everybody's partnering up. So I'm like, we'll take the same formula and just duplicate it in other industries. So I talked to Reverend JJ about, things that I'd like to do and so forth. And I think that's why he was like, come to this particular moment today and do what I'm doing, kind of get the word out that, at least for myself, looking at approaching things a little differently because we have to, definitely because of 2021. But I was always looking at youth as a challenge anyways. It was 28% unemployment. I mean, I don't look at the number anymore. It's like, it literally makes my belly hurt. So anyhow.
Thank you.
So if you have some connections, Betty, please let me know. I'd love to work with any of your peoples, and any of your nurses, anybody who might be into mentorship, wanting to talk to any ladies that are interested in getting into healthcare. That's something else I'm trying to do. So at least they have somebody they can talk to, before they actually even go into college or as they're finishing college and trying to figure out what to do with themselves. So that would be awesome.
I'll check it out.
I think Susan Johnson has a
upon your many other things.
Yeah, I was just going back because, decades when I was younger, we used to have what were called guidance counselors who would sort of do the preliminary vetting to see what field you might want to go into, and they would bring in films that was back then, but the speakers to let you know sort of like what's involved if you want to get into this field. Do you have these qualities? And I don't know if that's still going around but it's certainly most young people, I don't think they've got really know. And part of it is they don't know what is it that they'd be getting into. There's nothing worse than going through a university course and finding out, this isn't working. So something like that would be, I think, if it's not in place now, it should be.
Well, especially since just recently we had the situation come up about internships and co-ops and how now they actually have to be paid, where for a period of time that was an area that unfortunately was exploited. Again, we just kind of left this area open to, we wish you the best. We hope you got some parenting. I hope you're paying attention in school. And, that's just kind of how we treat one's career journey to a certain extent. What I've found with guidance counseling lately, you have your mandatory class, your career course that you have to take, but there's not necessarily someone in your last year of school that's regularly checking in with you, especially if you're just hitting your grades. And especially now with things becoming virtual, again, it's another area I'm trying not to think about right now because it's just turning my stomach. I don't have answers for what's going to happen in that particular area.
Richard, my name is Peter. I have a question regarding what you just discussed about the education system giving up on the apprenticeship. I would have liked to have seen that expanded rather than demolished by the education system.
Thanks, sir.
There are some countries in Europe, like Germany, that promote that from a grade school, not high school, where kids are kindly exposed to work areas. They start with the touring and asking the questions. and all of that. That's where I would have liked our apprenticeship to start from, really from about grade 7, maybe grade 6, and up. And where these students get a feel of what it is really like to be in that profession or in that field and what it entails. They actually see. They're exposed to what the work actually is instead of just being talked about.
Yeah, they reduced it to one day, November the 2nd, to take your kid to work day. And I mean, I'm a solution driven individual. I don't like speaking dismissive. And if this is offending anyone, please forgive me. That's not enough. One day is not enough. I know it sounds good and they tout it as something that's very nice. Yes, it is, but it's more playful than purposeful.
Right. It should be actually part of the curriculum where they are, exposed to
Oh,
workplace.
you have a report that you're supposed, like I remember you were supposed to give a report of what you did at your dad or mom's job. It was like, what did you do? Like it wasn't just you kind of visited and you hung out. Like it was a big deal. You had to literally go and work where your parents worked that day. And that was your beginning to, and it was supposed to start in grade 6 and 7, that program, because it is geared to elementary, for that to be your entry course to the discussion of work and so forth. So yes, sir, thanks for catching that. I'm a huge believer that we've missed the boat. I have a young son myself who's just about to turn 5, and he's my first, and I see it in him, especially in a lot of the mechanical things that he does. And I'm just wondering, I'm hoping whoever is going to be his teachers will pick up on what his natural attributes are and just let him run with it and see where it can go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my only exposure to apprenticeship when I was still working, I was an HR manager for over 21 years. And part of those years I spent with a auto service repair network that was in Canada and the US. It was the auto mechanics and how the government kind of was involved in certifying the auto mechanic. And I found that they were more, there was more bureaucracy than what it was worth. And people would lose, they didn't have much faith because the bureaucracy was just too great, and some of them would give up. And of course, our company used to encourage that by funding some of the, the cost.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which a lot of companies are. That's the biggest scare with a lot of employers. They don't want a lot of bureaucracy. They just want the government to help.
Exactly. And unfortunately, the way they do have it systematically set up is it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of intrusion into your business. And very much so as a lot of businesses don't have a great relationship with the government.
Yeah.
I mean, to a certain aspect. But as I said, to just see a value in something and to see it be depreciated to the extent, and also just knowing you got an aging population and such a foundational industry, skills and trade. Like if you don't have people to fix and build your infrastructure, anyways. As you can tell, I'm a talker. I can go on many different subjects. Is there any other?
I'm surprised that the government hasn't taken advantage, carrying it forward and mechanized a lot of this, especially a lot of the testing, where people could do it, even when they went home, they could take the test. I'm sure there's a way that they could do that instead of actually going in or whatever.
Well, they're figuring all of that out right now, unfortunately, because they have to. It's one of these areas where COVID has, a term I'm using, quantum leaped some situations. It's not that we've just taken a step or we've jumped. We've literally quantum leaped some bureaucratic, man, my tongue is very dry, hold on. Bureaucratic situations, very much like the application process. A lot of this stuff is just having to be now online, which is useful.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Gary and Peter.
Thank you very much. That was a great point.
And Richard, question. So we have in Toronto, I can think of just off the top of my head, we have Western Tech and Central Tech, two essentially apprenticeship-focused schools. Now, what's your opinion, though? I mean, there you're streaming a 14-year-old into a tech program, and then potentially, if you didn't go into that, you missed out on 4 years of exploring whether you even wanted to do that. Do you think that's still valuable or not? Having a
No, because of the stigma, as we all kind of chuckled when I laughed, because I was, looking roughly at our all age group. We're not shy of 30 so far. I'll just say that much. When I said, remember the days of shop class, remember the days when people had to take woodworking, and yeah, there was a stigma. Like, why are those people over there doing that? Guy who he wants to learn how to do is build a car. Like, why not? But those schools come with a stigma, and also you're going to a school with a group of individuals, and then all of a sudden you're removed to go off to another school. Maybe our society just hasn't matured enough to that level to just look at that's just where that kid's going because he happens to have that passion. See, again, because you don't have an education system that supports that philosophy or mentality. So that's why it needs to be incorporated and shifted, like the gentleman stated, to an earlier age, to just incorporate that's just another stream, another occupation of life. Because by waiting till they're already in high school, they've already started to formulate what's a good occupation and what's not a good occupation.
Mm-hmm.
Even occupation in general is good. It's good to, like, especially with what we're going through now. I think a lot of people have had a different mindset of having a job or not having a job.
Right. Any other questions from people? Well, to your point about the trades, when you look at the people who are making money hand over fist right now, I would say the trades are doing quite well. It used to be the term blue collar was synonymous with low income. Well, we've done a more than 180 with that one, and blue collar is now synonymous with owning a more interesting house than probably the people that are white collar, quite honestly, in many contexts. So there you go.
The more the white collar wants, the more the blue collar makes.
That's a good line. Okay, can we quote you? So, any more questions?
You can quote that. That literally just came up right now.
Good. Well,
just give me my 2% royalties if you don't mind.
You should tagline it. Yes, definitely. So, do people have any other? I mean, this has been very interesting. Any other questions from people? No. Yes. No. Actually, it'd be good for having you maybe talk to our youth at some time. Maybe we should have you as a theme speaker one night, and I think that would be very interesting. Certainly.
Well, I would love the opportunity to. I've come up with a little aptitude model that I love working with the youth now to do that very much thing that I'm talking about, looking at their personality, respecting who they are, because that's also the generation that we've raised them to be. What do you feel like? What's going on? So I'm not going to go against, what it is that I'm working with. So if I am going to ask you that question, then what do you like? Even if it's video games, I've been able to stream a lot now, and as we see it, is there an occupation you can move to that's there? A game maker, game designer. There's a friend who was an artist. I said, maybe you can be the graphic sketch designer that does the sketch that actually becomes the actual game itself. Got him a job. So it's it's an interesting world we're in. So thank you again for having the moment to talk. And hopefully we'll connect. And as I said, we're looking for connections in the tech sector, as that's new to youth employment services. So if anybody does happen to have that, I'll leave my email address in the chat room, and you can pass that information on to me.
And if you could resend the document that had all the video links, we can incorporate that into the network. That'd be very helpful. Yeah. So,
1,000% I'll do so. And thank you again, Susan, for putting this together in Urban JJ. God bless.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Richard. And now we have, I think I see Sandra. Here on
still here, not going anywhere.
Oh, good. And there's Sandra. I'm just going to highlight you, spotlight you for a second, because I know you wanted to introduce. Welcome, Sandra. So good to see. Sandra and I go way back. We used to have breakfast every Thursday with our Bible study group, and I've been to your wonderful place in Paul's in Arundel, and it was actually you came, I think, or no, you didn't come the day Paul spoke. You were there. No. Okay. Well, over to you, Sandra. And you want to just say, I know I'm saying your name, but you want to say your name and your connection probably with our other lovely speaker.
Yes. Well, my name is Sandra Hallier, and thank you for your welcome, John Joseph. And it's a pleasure to be here to introduce my friend, Dr. Peg Herbert, who's the founder and executive director of the NGO HelpLesotho. And Peg and I first met in Ottawa about 20 years ago when a group of women, initiated by Peg, helped with some Kosovo refugees. You may remember that Kosovo refugee time. Once the family was settled, Peg was the only one who stayed in touch. She made time for the family, offered support and friendship, and nurtured those relationships, many of which continue to this day. So Peg is a woman of deep faith who is also a down-to-earth activist. HelpLesotho came into being because of her faith. A year or two before HelpLesotho's inception, Peg was teaching a postgraduate course at Ottawa U, and one of her students was Sister Alice, who was a principal from an elementary school in Lesotho. In true Peg style, after Sister Alice returned to Lesotho, Peg kept in touch with her. The following summer, Peg ended up spending her vacation time in Lesotho. And that visit changed Peg's life and a lot of our lives. Peg was deeply touched by the people she encountered and also the poverty of the nation, where AIDS cases at that time were the third highest in the world. And so HelpLesotho was created, starting at first in a small way. Peg asked Canadians to sponsor a female orphan in high school for 1 year. At that time, students had to pay for high school, so orphans were unable to attend. And it's been inspiring for me to watch HelpLesotho grow over the years. Many innovative, caring, and exciting programs have been developed for grandmothers, for teenage single mothers, leadership courses for young adults, and more. These programs educate and help develop self-confidence. But there is also an emphasis on giving back what has been received, of making a contribution to one's own community. This is one of Peg's strong beliefs. So many encouraging things are happening. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my friend Peg.
Thank you, Sandra. I think that's the most accurate introduction I've ever had.
Okay.
Thank you. Lovely to see you. And I've known John Joseph for quite a while, and I've spoken at Metropolitan United a couple of times anyway. And it's nice to be here. I want to just start with the fact that, following on Richard's point, that unless we nourish the youth of the world, there won't be much of a world. And teenagers are my favorite species. They always have been. And this was a big motivator in most of the professional decisions I've made. I'm an educational psychologist, and my field is educational and developmental psychology. So, as Sandra was saying, I came upon this serendipitously, and I had always sort of woken up in the morning and said to God, well, I could do more. If there's something you want. I don't say that anymore. I haven't said that for years. No more. Please, no more. But it's amazing what God can do if we say yes and kind of stand out of the way. I'm clear who's the boss, and I'm the worker bee. So I just want to take you on a little journey to show you what can be done and how hopeful things are in the middle of misery. We tend to blanket things as either awful or wonderful, and really that's not the case. So I'll show you some pictures and tell you some stories. So I will just, share my screen. And I'm in Ottawa, and it is cold. Just wondering where my PowerPoint is, just a sec. I don't see it.
So did you call it up before you, and then when you shared screen?
It's
okay.
up. So I'll
so you,
try again.
But you didn't share your screen yet.
I did. My screen is shared. Okay, but I don't see the actual full file.
It's coming up.
Okay. You see it?
I see. Hi, Peg. Great. We're looking at your inbox.
Yeah, not good.
Okay.
Well, it's just shared a few minutes ago.
It did. So what you need to do, go back into your desktop and call up your PowerPoint, so you can see it, and then go back out of there and back into and try share screen. It should be up.
Yeah.
Don't worry. This has happened to me. This has happened to me many times.
I just did that though.
Okay. Okay.
And it's not showing on the.
You have to call it up and then minimize the document.
And then it's not showing on when I share screen. It's not showing. It's showing the other documents I've been working on.
Yeah, press the button. Click on the document and then press share.
I don't see it.
And it should show up on your shared screen.
Yeah, it should. Let's see.
Technology is wonderful.
It's kind of tricky.
Well, it was just showing before. It should.
It did.
Yeah.
It was just fine. So I don't know if, let me just check the setting here. If not, I can go on without it. It's not. Okay, so let me just check. Okay, got it. It was limiting. It was limiting the.
There we go.
Okay.
Amen.
So I'll just tell you a little bit about what we do, and then just tell you about the power of prayer. And Sandra's heard this so many times. So thank you, Sandra, for your patience and listening. So first of all, the country is Lesotho. The people are Basotho, and the language is Sesotho. And you can go to our website. It's completely landlocked inside the Republic of South Africa, 30,500 square kilometers. It's exactly the size of Maryland or Belgium. So it's very small, but it's the third highest country in the world for all of you who love details. Stunningly beautiful. I believe these mountains, Sandra's been several times, and I believe these mountains to be among the oldest geologically in the world. So they're all smoothed out, they're soft, and they're very sculpturesque, which I love. This picture is taken almost in the center of the country, about 10,000 feet above sea level. So our focus has been very consistent since the beginning. And we're there to support the children, but we support the people around the children. So that means the local communities, the grandmothers, the young mothers. We do lots of intergenerational community dialogues. So we have lots of different services, but the children and youth are the focus. So there's Sister Alison Poutsway. So it's all her fault. Sandra knows her well. She's actually stayed at Sandra's house. She's very charming. So she was my student. She was doing her master's in education, and we spent a lot of time together. And that's when I learned about Lesotho. I'd never heard about it before. So Sister Alice is still a school principal. I see her every time I go. For the first 10 years, I spent 4 to 5 months a year there, building people, centers, schools, and the organization. So at this point, all of our staff are local. So we had some volunteers at the very beginning, and Sandra came. Sandra was in the first group of volunteers who came because we didn't have any staff, we didn't have any money. And frankly, I had no interest in starting an organization. I think there's far too many in the world. But when I came back, I reached out to about 100 people and organizations who'd ever worked in Lesotho. And since the fall of apartheid, they really hadn't been. So when I went, the life expectancy was about 33, 34 people were dying everywhere. And as Sandra alluded to, it was absolutely heartbreaking. And I've always worked with disadvantaged populations. So this is not a big stretch in what I've always done, but the location is rather unusual. Because I work in the middle of nowhere, and I would often be the only white woman for months and within miles. So this is our staff, or some of them. I have a staff of about 30, and they are amazing. I'm so proud of them. They're just wonderful. We take them from, we build them right up from the beginning, because our work is sophisticated, and they need to know what they're doing. We provide a lot of psychosocial support. There were 300,000 orphans at the peak. Grandmothers are looking after them. There's nowhere for them to go. People are hungry, people are poor. They compound grief, loss, fear, anxiety, anger at God. It was just debilitating the entire country. So we help them in all of it. We have 22 programs, and 11 of them are what we call intensive. And they're for long periods. They could be 2 months straight, every day for 2 months. They could be 2 years. The child sponsorship is 5 or 6 years. And they get a chance to grow. My field is cognitive development. So all of our programs are about helping them to learn to be self-aware, think for themselves, and learn to make healthy decisions in a very disadvantageous environment. So you can see that from 0 to this is now we're in our 17th year. The extraordinary outreach that we've had. So last year, as of June last year, it's the end of our fiscal year, we've raised $22 million with no government funding, and we have so much support. We have donated office space in Ottawa. Hallmark Remax donates the office space. So particularly during all this lockdown for this year, we're not burdened by the overhead of an office. And so you can see that roughly 89 to 91% of all of our funds go to programs. And a lot of the administration actually is our audit. People want accountability, and that's quite expensive. So we have 2 centers. One is is our head office on the left, and the other one's a small, very dear center that's currently getting a huge coat of paint and some purging. And that's in a cornfield in the middle of nowhere. We have grandmother programs. Young mother programs. The young mothers can be anywhere from 14 to 22, and very rarely do the fathers of these children stick around. So they have to be either pregnant or lactating. And that program is a year, and they all start little businesses. Our grandmother program is huge. We're also head of the grandmother network for the whole country, and we've pioneered a lot of programming for grandmothers. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about these things because your questions afterwards will lead to your discussion. So I came back, very circuitous route. On the 19th, I arrived in Canada on the 20th of March. It took me almost a week to get back. I had to stay in the UK and fly through different countries, and they were shutting down borders everywhere. And as soon as I got back, we pivoted immediately to address some very primary needs. One was starvation. For example, our young mothers, they had to close down their little businesses because they ate all their inventory or they had to sell it off. I'll show you some pictures, but we had 3 months of very intensive pivoting our programs, and then we've done so again. So in March to June, we expected this to decimate the country. Right now it has the second highest rate of AIDS, highest rate of TB, one of the highest maternal and infant mortality rates in the world. But in fact, that didn't happen. They closed the borders and they had very, very few cases. But they were paralyzed with fear. So our staff, none of our staff have internet at home. We had to learn to send data to their phones. They hotspotted their phones, their computers from their phones. We have a huge database of about 3,000 beneficiaries. They called all their beneficiaries, previous beneficiaries, see how they were doing, provide psychosocial support over the phone, and provide COVID information. We developed COVID sheets of information, distributed thousands of them all over the mountains. The population is spread very, very sparsely over the mountains. When I first went there, only 11% of the land was arable. Now it would be much less. So we gave masks immediately to all of our beneficiaries. We gave them 2,000 families. We gave them food parcels, some fuel for their stoves, and talked to them about what this is and tried to help them cope and plan for their families. These are the food parcels. The plastic jug there, we would think of as a water jug, is full of paraffin for their stoves. And there's mace meal, some oranges, some fresh vegetables, but there's soap for the hand washing, demonstrations of hand washing, clothes soap, peas, beans. Our staff had to put these together and take them all over the mountains. It was just an incredible effort. And then, of course, they have to come and get them. We have a lot of our grandmothers, they could be blind or lame or just weak, lots of arthritis, high blood pressure. So they would have to find ways to take these gifts, they call them, home. So I will just get out of that. So then after that, we proceeded, and there was a lightening up of the, just going to change the view so I can see you better. So over our summer, they really didn't pay much attention. But during this time in South Africa, the incidence of COVID was increasing very rapidly. And then at Christmas, so Lesotho is basically a migrant working population. So great deal of the population work in South Africa, and then they come home where they send remittances. So the border had been closed since March. They opened it for Christmas, and they let 130,000 Lesotho come back in. And they brought the new variant from South Africa, and now it's spreading rampantly. Every day I'm hearing more and more people talk about the funerals, the deaths of their friends, their families, their neighbors. And this is the horror that we had anticipated. So we pivoted again. We're starting an initiative to help the grandmothers develop wills so they can leave something, even their hut, to the children, or else there'll be another generation of children who are bereft. The high school students, they still have to pay for high school, but they haven't been in school for a year. And before that, there were lots of teacher strikes. So a lot of them are becoming disengaged from school. Sandra was on a prayer group yesterday that we had. HelpLesotho as a prayer group right from the beginning. I would never, ever have done this without a huge number of people praying about everything. I was so annoying. I just asked everybody to keep praying because it's a huge amount of responsibility, and I move very quickly. So I need to have that coverage to make sure we're making the right decision. So we had a big Zoom about with some prayer requests with the staff from Lesotho. And this week there was a big cyclone that hit South Africa. And now in Lesotho, these torrential rains came this week. And I don't know if you know the effect of climate change in sub-Saharan Africa, but the ground has these long periods of drought, becomes as hard as concrete, and then these flash floods that come and they take the soil and seeds away. So this is the middle of the growing season, and huts were wrecked, roofs fall off. Many, I have about 6,700 followers on Twitter. and my Twitter feed is just filled with pictures of the roads have been washed away. It's just devastating. The holes in the thatch and the roofs of our grannies, they're just struggling. So we are developing educational material that we're going to be reproducing by the thousands to keep these kids thinking about something. Most of them in their huts. I mean, Sandra will tell you she's been in their huts. There's no table for a child to study, or extra room for them to go, or electricity, or extra paper, not a book. And of course, that's not the situation for prosperous people in the capital city, but the people we choose to serve have nothing. So we're very concerned, and we're working around the clock. And so I just want, as a big picture, say that it's easy to give up. It's easy to think that you can't manage all these huge problems. We're all entirely destabilized by the political situation in the last 4 years in the United States, we think. But there is so much proof that God exists in the world, in the pain, in these situations. And I feel I have a front row seat to that. Our donors are all over the world. Like yesterday, one of them from New Zealand got up at, what did she say, Sandra, 5 o'clock or something, to be on the prayer. And they are so faithful. They deeply care. People are good. And this morning, I just got an email from a donor who said, I'm sorry, I can't do my monthly donations anymore because my children are unemployed. But they apologize and they say, as soon as I can, I will come back. And that's only about the 4th person in all the donors that we have. And they let us do what we think is right. We're very careful how we work in terms of development. And I just wish we could all amplify the positive news, because we need it. We're all shut down. I've been working from my house, and I live alone, working from my house since March. We all need to know and see tangible evidence of God, of faith. Our staff pray. Every meeting starts with prayer, and a song. And God is so integral to managing all of this globally. And we have the opportunity to say that. We have the opportunity to speak this out, and to, I was brought up to feel when you're having trouble, the best thing you can do is help others. And I think that with us being so isolated, there's lots of opportunities to help other people. And we want to think locally, and that's a good idea. But I'm hoping, when I think back, Trump just drove me insane. And I hope that the drama of his policies showed us that if we don't look after the least of these, the world cannot manage. That it will come back to bite us, that we can't just stay in our bubble and look after ourselves. So every day is like Christmas to me, because we get our donors write us all the time with encouragement, and they're so positive and caring and kind, and they really deeply care about what's happening. And that's wonderful, because we don't want to let go of that idea of faith. As Richard was saying, our young people here, they need a lot of support, but so do the youth around the world. So I live in a daily attitude of gratitude because of all of the miracles that I've seen. You saw the magnitude. We've raised $22 million without government funding. We've helped 240,000 people. That could never have happened without all of the people and all of their prayers. So it is a happy story, although it's in the middle of a lot of misery. So I just want to very briefly scope that out for you, so you could tell me if or what area you might be interested in.
Well, thank you, Peg. That's very powerful. And I'm just going to invite people that want to ask questions. And any quick questions right off the top to Peg?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Peg.
Thank you, Peg. That was a very interesting presentation. It's definitely an overwhelming issue. I won't call it a problem because for every problem, there is a solution. And I love your attitude about, waking up with having an attitude of gratitude. All is possible with an attitude of gratitude. And I don't know where my skills would be useful in your organization, but I'm sure there is some place, and I hope we can talk after the meeting here.
Well, thank you. One of the things people can do, I have no desire to be a fundraiser or to honestly,
right.
I have a whole other career that I prefer to be with people, but I've had the opportunity to speak to, thousands of people, lots of locations. And I've learned that people think that doing something is usually money, or that if they don't have money, they can't help. And that's not my experience. My experience is that if you want to help and you learn about it and you are knowledgeable and passionate, then your advocacy will find the money, will find those people. A perfect example is, and we've had groups all over the country, raising money for grandmothers or young mothers or whatever. And about 5 years ago, we got a check just before Christmas for $15,000. And that's a lot of money for us. We don't get large checks all the time. And I was so surprised. So I called this woman up to thank her. And I said, I'd love to meet with you. We had coffee. And she was so quiet. And I said, well, how did you know about us? That's a very generous first donation. She said, oh, I don't know much about you, but my best friend's been talking about this and you for 10 years. And I ever thought if I ever had any money, I'd give it to you. And it's just an example that her friend and this woman, her husband was the deputy director of the Bank of Canada. These are people who have lots of options if they have extra money. But her friend, who does not have a lot of money, has been praying for us every day since I started this. And so that spilled out to her relationships. And that's how we've grown, frankly. We spend nothing on advertising or fancy stuff. We do everything in-house. We create everything ourselves from scratch. Even the website, everything. And it's people's advocacy. We have to find leaders and organizations we really believe in, because people are becoming, from my perspective, people are becoming more cautious about who they support. They don't know what's good development anymore. And so when someone they respect says, I know this organization, I know that all their staff are local, I know that they always buy locally, they don't ship stuff over so that they can support the local economy. I know that they're always devolving responsibility to the staff in Lesotho so they can become increasingly more autonomous. I know that they never make a decision without thoroughly vetting it with the local people. All their partners in the country are local. If somebody says that, they say, okay, thank you. You've done my research for me and you've given me something valuable. So I just want to say that because I feel people get immobilized by what they perceive to be the scale. They want to do something themselves. Like an example would be when I first started, what I did when I came back, I spent such a long time calling people in Lesotho, just listening. And then I packaged things up in such small pieces that no one could refuse me. I'm hard to say no to because I'm the woman coming to the judge repeatedly over and over again until they give in, because I have to. These people have no one to advocate for them. And I just see over time that people become more cynical. People are becoming more cautious. So again, we can speak to that. But we did a book drive at the beginning, and I now know that wasn't a good idea. I only did it once because we're sending our stuff over. And I just put in an order. You'll love this, Sandra, for 100 books for our libraries, but they're African books. It took me months to find someone who could deliver them to Lesotho, but our books are African people doing African things. We are very careful. So knowing these things is your advocacy. Does that make sense, Peter or Gary, which one you respond?
Yeah, it does make sense. Yeah.
So Peg, I put your email in the chat. So you
can put the website as well.
Yeah.
I have a question about the country. What's the population and how is it governed?
Good question. It's a constitutional monarchy. It is it was never colonized, actually. It was a homeland, they call it. There were 3 homelands: Basotho land, Swaziland, and Lesotho was called Basotho land, or the other was Botswana. And they gained their independence from Britain in 1966. They have a hereditary monarch, King Let's-Say III, whom I know very well, and his wife, and they're lovely. And it's same as us, Senate and Parliament. But it is compared to us, an embryonic democracy, and it's not doing all that well. Yeah, does that answer your question?
And what was the population?
Population, thank you. The population was 2.2, 2.3 million. It went down to 1.8, like that, with AIDS. And then now it's up around 2. But I think it'll go back down fairly quickly. The mortuaries are not accepting any more bodies. Many of the clinics in the mountains are not accepting any more patients. They don't have any PPE. They have no oxygen, and they don't even have one ventilator in the country. When I first went there was no treatment for AIDS outside the capital city. And it was just a death sentence, and that's pretty much what COVID will be. So we're very concerned. Betty.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot more about the World Health Organization, and do they have a role there as well, or how do they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they have done a great job. So when I was there in 2004, actually, Bill Gates, Stephen Lewis brought Bill Gates and Bill Clinton to Lesotho and said, if we don't help this country, they're on the verge of extinction. And that was really part of the rationale for the Clinton Foundation to negotiate the generic antiretroviral drugs from India. And the WHO has been very, and the Global Fund have been very, and the Clinton Foundation, very helpful in providing free antiretroviral drugs. But the rollout of that, the infrastructure to roll these things out was not there. So that took a long time.
I think that when I heard Tedros speak about the moral catastrophic failure we have towards these countries that are in distress, it really struck me as to how fortunate we are in our countries and the needs so many places. And I started to read about Lesotho just today because I thought, oh, let me read a little bit, and certainly an interesting history and a lot of issues to deal with.
Yes.
There. Yeah.
Yes, I've cumulatively lived years there, and we're sad that this is happening to them again, and then the floods, and they just can't seem to get a break.
Yeah.
But they rarely complain. They're always praying. They're always grateful. I have a bit of a Mother Earth complex, I think that's Andrew. So I have all these young people in Lesotho who I've been their mother, a lot of them, you know, at leadership camp. I used to be there and listen to their problems. And, you know, they may have graduated 10, 15 years ago. They still write. They are still grateful. They are still holding on to all the things. When I see them, that's one of my big joys. When I see them, I'm walking around and this will be the first winter in 17 years I've not spent in Lesotho. And they'll run across the field, my peg, I am not pregnant. I have a job. I'm not going to get married till I can support myself. I'm a leader in my community. I'm helping the orphans this way. They know exactly what is expected, and every single program module of every day, so maybe 3 times in a day, it's okay, you know, now you've learned this, what are you going to do for someone else? How are you going to transfer this to your community? So almost all of our program staff are graduates of our programs. It's all of this. This is your responsibility. This is your country. This is your future. And they accept it. They know. And I'm so proud of them.
So Peg, one of the hats I wear, I'm chair of the Rotary Club of Toronto International Services Committee. And what we do, we disperse funds to international partners. But
is Rotary, I'm sorry, did you say?
Rotary Club of Toronto.
Yes. Yep.
International Services Committee. So essentially we partner with, well, anywhere in the world, but it needs to be with an existing Rotary Club.
Yes.
So I'm assuming Lesotho must have a Rotary Club or something like that.
2.
Good. Okay. So let's talk further another time, and we'll call this discussion offline, and we can go from it. Because what we do is we send the money to the Rotary Club, and they act as the international banker for the project. But you would need to approach them on the ground, and
yes,
the Zoom ground right now.
Well, I've spoken many times, several times at the Rotary Clubs, there's Maluti
good.
Club, and we've had some struggles getting that going, but
okay, we'll have them connect with, maybe the 3 of us or 4 of us can connect and somehow and go from there. Okay.
Perfect.
Great.
Excellent.
Okay. Any questions from people? I mean, this is you know, when you think of, I was sharing the other day with in our group, I think it was our book study, that in 1896 there was the Berlin Conference that subdivided Africa by 6 European nations, decided without even consulting Africa which part of Africa they would now own and govern. And Lesotho is part of that other end of the legacy. Now, fortunately, they kept their own culture. I mean, which not every country can say that. And
well, actually, if I may interrupt you there, the Basotho are one of the most homogeneous populations in Africa because they are entirely surrounded by South Africa.
Right.
And because of the apartheid in South Africa,
right,
they were isolated. So it put their development back.
Right.
But it protected them in some ways because there was very little immigration.
Right.
The only foreigners generally you see, there's a few hikers and stuff, but there's very little tourism. It's generally engineers because they have water and they have different things. But that homogeneity has protective factors, but it also has inhibiting factors because the social norms against change can be very rigid and often very punitive.
Right. I can imagine.
Yeah.
So any other questions from people? No?
I have a comment. We took a tour of South Africa in 1998 with Craig Travel, and we more or less went around the circumference of South Africa. This country was never mentioned during the tour.
No, it doesn't exist, basically, globally. Nobody ever mentions it.
So there was no apartheid in that country. It was totally isolated from South Africa.
And entirely Black. So some Black leaders and families sent their children to Lesotho to be educated, and it used to have a very good education system, like the university used to be strong, and it's not anymore, but so that they wouldn't be subjected to the kinds of punitive measures in apartheid. And that's really why AIDS spread so quickly, because they were a nation of miners. They were working in the mines in South Africa. They had second families. They had AIDS. And then when apartheid fell in 1994, the new government instituted a quota on the number of foreigners who could work in the mines, which was against the Basotho. So in one day, 100,000 Basotho men lost their jobs and went home with AIDS. So that was to go all over the mountains, and it spread exponentially there. So it's had a very unusual history, frankly.
Well, thank you, Peg. It's been very interesting, and certainly we have the website popped up, and I see Richard put his email in there too. Thank you, Richard, for thinking of that. That's always good, and it's been truly both. I mean, both weave in quite nicely youth employment services and helping Lesotho. I think it's very profound and very remarkable. And just to now, Susan, would you like to? No, just next week we're going to have Debbie Danbrook with our labyrinth. We will figure out how to do a COVID version of the labyrinth, but imagination is never short. In my grocery bag, I have an imagination as big as Costco, if not larger. So something will come, certainly. And so, Susan Johnson, I think you're
ready.
Can you just bring some farewell words?
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming, and thank all our speakers for enlightening us. And tell your friends about our series. You can get the details on our webpage, and we hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Lovely to see you all.